Hello and welcome to today's episode of our podcast, Human Dignity in Crisis, Addressing Bonded Labor as a Humanitarian Challenge. I am Zehra, your host for today, and today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Kiran Kamal Prasad. Dr. Prasad is also known as a Supreme Lebo, founded Jiva Free in 1988 to rescue bonded laborers in Karnataka. The organization had freed over 30,000 individuals, mainly Dalit and Monavasis, and focuses on education and community support for rehabilitation. Dr. Prasad was also honored with CNCDH 2020 award by French ambassador in India for his significant contribution to human rights. He dedicated his life to advocating for the rights of bonded laborers and Dalit in South Asia. We are honored to have him today to share his journey, insights, and expertise on this crucial topic. Thank you so much, Dr. Prasad, for sharing. How are you?
I'm fine.
Great. So let's get started. The very first question is, could you share your journey and what inspired you to dedicate your life to help bonded laborers and Dalit? What was your turning point?
Yeah. There were many turning points or main, but basically in terms of my journey, it is a long journey, and therefore there are many landmarks. It will take quite a lot of time. And my journey specifically on bonded labor and with the Dalits, with the bonded labor, it begins, I would say, and with the Dalits, 1986, December 2, started staying in a Dalit village in Anekal Taluk of Bangalore district to join the struggles and of the Dalits in their liberation. And concretely, on August 1987, I was exposed directly to the reality of 40 bonded laborers in one village. And with that, when I explain that, how that incident and all, I can go deeper. But therefore, with that exposure, and at the time, the I came to know, the government of Karnataka was denying that there was bonded labor still existing. Because Karnataka is a government which has, in the entire country, has done a lot of work when the Act came, 1975, 76, till 80. It topped all the list among all the states. Even now, it tops the list. And because of that, the fallout was that government started claiming we have wiped out the system and there is no more bonded labor. And they even went to the extent saying the law also is not applicable. And in this context, I said, let me build up scientific data. For 1988 till 1990, I drew up a questionnaire, studied the law, went to the various practices where bonded labor was taken up and the tools that were used for identification. But I developed a survey form of 4 pages on foolscap page. It was printed because if one village there are 40 bonded laborers, my presumption was that there could be a large number. And I wanted to, and not just address those 40 bonded laborers, I said, let me do a survey in the entire taluk, which had more than 300 villages. I went around on foot, on cycles, sometimes with some political leaders who knew their friends in other Dalit villages, went around, sat with people, gathered the data, all that, and found out who are the bonded laborers and all. Ultimately, we identified about 700 bonded laborers. At the first level, there were about 2,000 who could be presumed to be bonded laborers, but ultimately, very rigorously, we zeroed down to about 700. And then it took a long time because, meanwhile, in 1988, the National Literacy Mission came to Karnataka, and I was invited by the director. He had read my books on adult education, following the methods of Paulo Freire, Brazilian great activist and scholar. And that took me 1 year to coordinate that effort. Then when the survey, the data were tabulated and analyzed, I presented to the Karnataka legislature through a friend of mine. I developed that friendship very recently at that time. And the member of the Legislative Council, he was Dr. Sidlingaya, a founder of the Dalit movement in Karnataka, one of the main three pillars of the movement. It goes by the name Dalita Sangarsha Samiti. And he was a great person in many respects. He was the founder. He was a great poet, very, very evocative, poetry, which even now inspires the Dalits in the villages and in the programs. He was a writer, he was a researcher, scholar, and also a professor in a university, Bangalore University. And I asked him, he was just nominated to the legislature, please take it up, raise the question on bonded labor. He readily agreed, and maybe because of his stature, on I think around June 20th, the minister, when he presented the data and the MLC asked the minister, what have you done? There is so much bonded labor even now in one particular taluk. And then he also, because of his experience, he talked about other taluks. The minister concerned, and our bonded labor only in Karnataka is addressed by Rural Development and Panchayat Raj Ministry. And the minister readily said, we are aware, the government is aware the existence of bonded labor, and it is committed to take up whatever to be done under the law. And that process began, and then, and the same, once that assurance, we began the whole the task of organizing and awareness building. It goes by the name. It is originates to this Paulo Freire, conscientization and organization, and we began the task of awareness building through meetings, trainings, and following it up with the authorities, having street theater for the bonded laborers, Dalits, and to the general public, and taking up certain local issues of bonded labor. One typical case, a bonded youth, 18-year-old, he was a bonded laborer, and he was killed in a evening because the landlord's only daughter, had fallen in love with him, and when the father came to know of it, he was murdered by pouring what you call these pesticides, and it was as if it was made known to be a case of suicide, and without giving the information to the family in the same village, the body was cremated, and then the message was given to the family, and we took it up. That was one like that. There were a lot of programs at the district level, taluk level, state level, seminars, all these questions. Then, out of the 700 people in 1991 or 2, out of that, even very reduced number, 197 bonded laborers were given release certificates. And in 1992, the Special DC of Bangalore released rehabilitation grant. At the time, I think it was 6,250, and they were released. And then in 1993, we extended the movement to entire state level. And there we coined the term Jivika. We give the meaning bondage, free life. It is an acronym for JITA, which is bonded labor in Kannada, JITA Vimukti Liberation Karnataka, bonded labor liberation front in Karnataka. And then the first thing that we did was conducted training surveys, same scientific, survey tools to a large number of taluks, representing entire state, nearly 48 taluks out of 175 at that time. And the survey from 19, we identified nearly 20,000 bonded laborers, and each of these bonded laborers was encouraged or guided to give a individual representation application for her or his release and rehabilitation. And that way, and then with all that effort, with all those surveys and applications, in 1995, we conducted a state level seminar and workshop in Bangalore. About 10,000 bonded laborers gathered, and then we had also in a workshop where these figures were all tabulated and represented. After this program, we formed taluk teams to take up the work in 15 taluks, maybe about 10 districts at a time. And same work that we did in one taluk of training the bonded laborers, conducting various programs, bring them together in villages, conduct street theater, various awareness programs like this. Then at that time, some change happened at the national level. The National Human Rights Commission was formed, and in 1997, Supreme Court gave the role of monitoring Bonded Labor Act to NHRC, and it conducted its own survey. With all our pressures, the government we had represented about 20,000 bonded laborers, but government, in spite of that initial response from the minister, the and now when we did presented the national state level survey, they were very adamant. They said no, all these are not bonded laborers at all. And the government itself carried out entire state level in every district its own surveys in 96, 97, and ultimately the report was that there was no bonded labor. Then we were we we had to, because of such a prolonged from 95 to 2000, the Karnataka government was having its state level body. It is called High Level State High Power Committee on Bonded Labor. Every 6 months they were meeting, and every meeting they would pass saying these are not bonded laborers. What Jivika has represented or claimed are not bonded labor. Then something happened, dramatic thing happened, and which was a turn to our movement, and that is in 2000. 5 bonded laborers in a stone quarry. They were made to work in a quarry with 15 kg weighing iron chains were soldered on both the ankles, and they were working in that condition for about 3 to 4 years. And we can imagine such heavy chains on the stone quarry. They had to what we call lignite, dynamite, blast the rocks, and after blasting, run away as fast as possible to escape from the blast. Otherwise, they also would be exploded. And they were sore when we met, deep sores on both the legs. They were only wearing lungis. They could not have family life. Such a pathetic situation, and they exposed. And that too, I think, was somewhere in the middle of June. All the following day, the newspapers carried this incident in this episode on the front pages in English and Kannada papers, and the image of the state was shattered. The principal secretary of the Rural Development and Panchayat Raj, he was exposed. The chief minister and chief secretary, they made a very immediate announcement that they will do everything to identify all bonded laborers and take action under the act. And for the first time, government recognized Jivika's work. I was invited to take part in the state level seminar organized immediately afterwards. Then we were requested. There were, I think, around 27 districts or 25, I think, 27 districts. They conducted, out of that, most of the deputy commissioners invited us to conduct trainings. Then after the district level, where about 1,000 officers would be present, very short program of 3 to 4 hours. And after that, trainings to be conducted in taluks. Maybe we conducted about 80 to 90 such trainings. We build up other many teams so that the effort of trainings could be multiplied. But in spite of this heavy backing by the government and effort of trainings and giving trainings on law and how to identify and how to, but ultimately, what government came up was only about a figure of, I think, hardly 4,000 bonded laborers. This is the situation. Then in 2004, government of Karnataka invited me to prepare an action plan for the identification, release, rehabilitation of bonded laborers and also prosecution. And that the draft I presented, it was totally approved without even changing a single word. I approved in 2008 and 2009. A large number of copies were printed, 10,000 in Kannada and 1,000 English, distributed widely to the officers and to the non-governmental groups. And then in 2006, I was invited to be a member of the NGO core group. Then in 2011, a separate body was formed. 2011, I was that is NGO core group, NHRC core group on bonded labor, and have been a member of that body from 2011 till now. From 2010 to 2020, we have been identifying every year. We would carry out scientific surveys and represent to make the bonded laborers represent their case to the district magistrate, and we have represented about 20,000 such bonded laborers. And out of this, at that time, I think if initial stage about 4,000, about 3 to 4,000 of these bonded laborers have been released from 2000 to 2020. Nearly so far from 2000 to 2020, with the efforts of Jivika, government has released 7,000 bonded laborers and agriculture workers. And I forgot to mention, as part of this organization building, we promoted a separate body, a legal body. So far, Jivika, even now it is a movement. And in 1997, we registered as a trade union under the name, translates as a trade union of bonded laborers and agriculture workers in Karnataka. The Kannada name is Karnataka Jitadalu Mattu Krashi Karmikara Okkuta. And that way, we wanted to simultaneously identifying Dalit youth and trying to be leaders to identify and take up the case of bonded labor, were trained to be leaders and made empowered to identify the bonded laborers around them and take up their case. Then in this effort, now what happened in 2016, Government of India has brought, till then we had a rehabilitation called, it was centrally sponsored, 50% shared by the central and state governments. That was changed in 2016 to central sector scheme, but a very greatly enhanced scheme where the rehabilitation amount for men was 1 lakh, for women and children 2 lakhs, and bonded laborers in special circumstances 3 lakhs. But in spite of and many other rehabilitation schemes to be provided, it's a great scheme. But the downside of it, there's one stipulation. At the time of release, the government has to immediately grant 30,000 rupees now. Earlier it was a little less. And that has to be given immediately. And for this purpose, not to see that there is a delay, each district magistrate has a fund of 10 lakh rupees. All has been granted by the central government. But to get the balance amount of rehabilitation of now it is 70,000 earlier. Now many people who got release certificates earlier, they have got only 20,000. Therefore, those 70,000 or 1,70,000 or 2,70,000, the balance will be given only when the state gives a statement of the rehabilitation. This was only monetary grant, which has to be kept in annuity, so that when they need money, they don't have to borrow money and get into bondage. They use this. But as rehabilitation, state government has to provide either land-based or non-land-based rehabilitation scheme, land or various other livelihood, and give the skill training for that. The state government has to provide what they have done. Secondly, the state government has to provide the details of the prosecution. Now, I don't think prosecution, the law speaks of prosecution, but now our Bonded Labor Act is a very unique, where it says though it is a criminal provision is there, the action of identification, release, rehabilitation is given to the executive magistrates, to the district magistrates. The complaint has directly, it has not to go to police and police reporting, filing FIR reporting, and to magistrate court. Therefore, it is an administrative process, not criminal process in identification and release and rehabilitation. Then once this is over, the prosecution happens, and the Act also says the prosecution, judicial powers, 100% judicial powers may be given to the executive magistrate. And the Karnataka government has given these to the DMs and the sub-regional magistrate, the SDMs. But recently, 2022, the SDM's powers are taken out, but not of the DM. Even therefore, but other provisions, and in 2017, the central government has brought about a retrograde, it is called SOP, Standard Operating Procedures, where it says the investigation can be done by the police, together with the DM, all this. And if bonded labor is found with other offences, then the entire file has to be sent to the court. And in the court, we know, the adversarial system of finding out the truth, it takes ages. In spite of the SOP saying it should be over in 3 months, I don't think after 2016, none of the bonded laborers in Karnataka, about 3,000 of them who have got release certificate, have got this balanced amount. Therefore, our fight is now in terms of taking up challenging this with the revision, and we have also gone into a writ petition to the Karnataka High Court. And Karnataka SOP, following these guidelines, has brought out another retrograde state that all this release and giving rehabilitation grant has to be done immediately. And but Karnataka says even before giving a release certificate, the FIR has to be filed by the police if bonded labor is found with other offences. But bonded labor cases, there is the standard operating procedure says that the trial and finish it in 3 months, but it has not happened anywhere. Therefore, these bonded laborers are in a very precarious situation, and this is the situation where we are up against it. And therefore, after 2020, most of the bonded laborers in agriculture. Jivika, we are taking up largely the cases of modern labor in agriculture, but we have also taken up other cases. Like in 2012, we took up the issue of modern labor in coffee plantations in Kodagu, following a report by a journalist. And we represented the NHRC and all that, but ultimately not much has come. That the feudal hold of the plantation owners in Kodagu is very strong. Then in 2012, we identified another traditional practice of modern labor in North Karnataka, almost entire half of the state, 16 districts out of the 31. It goes by the name Biti Chakri. And the practice is just for 2 hours, 1, 2, or 3, depending on the number of cattle of the landlord. And all this is done by the Dalit families. One person from the Dalit family had to go and clean the cowshed, clean the courtyard, but there is no wage for that. It is customary obligation. Every day, entire year, and it goes on in the family. Even now, they are there. I did a deep participatory research and worked towards a doctorate there. And then also we conducted a state level, all those 16 district level surveys, brought out the findings and represented the government, held a state level seminar. And luckily, government promised it will take up the issue. And on November 18, 2020, the government declared that Biti Chakri is also a form of modern labor, and action has to be taken regarding modern labor under the Modern Labor Act. Therefore, this is another. And in 2015 or 2018 or so, we have also been addressing modern labor in sericulture factories. In one particular taluk, about 1,500 we have identified. We are taking it up. These are the various struggles. I think this could be what I had to say. Now, in terms of, now we are trying to the migration interstate to migrant labor, but we are not very successful with that. We have to develop methods. And then the 2021 advisory by the Human Rights Commission says modern labor is not just restricted to the villages, but it could be found in cities, in construction sites, in shopping malls, massage parlors, or street vending from North India. A lot of youth are used in selling pani puris, and most of the children are in or could be in bonded labor situation. There's a lot of things to be done, I think, with this, the first question. But the second part of it, what inspired me to take up, I think should I go into it?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
I'll give in a short this one. I told you I was exposed to this bonded labor issue in a village in 1987, August 19. What happened before that? My entire life dream was to work for the poor, and I had not made plans for my own livelihood or what I somehow very idealistically early teens. And then in my trainings, I was always concerned about who are the poor, what to be done, how was the best type of service. And and I was also in my graduation, I was exposed. A few of his friends studied this Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and I was trying to dream of that, to do that in Kannada and Karnataka at the earliest. And then my own exposure to Marxian analysis and social analysis, unique work being done by various organizations in empowering people. And out of all this analysis, understanding of society, I came my own realizations where the poor in India are not just the poor economic. The poor in India are the pejorative. And then the best service, I use this phrase, conscientize and organize. That is, build up the awareness of the affected people and their own struggle for their liberation. And this has been my dream to put into practice. And the first thing, I did my studies also in the local language and people's cultures and people's. And to stay there, now they are in a scheduled tribe group, but at that time they were not. They were very, very poor, living in the forest areas. People did not know how many were there. They are the African Indians in Karnataka. They are there. They are also in Gujarat. And I just went there to stay with them in a hamlet, one family, sharing their life, but poverty at that time. And my insight was to get them recognized as scheduled tribe. And I made the representations in October 83, and then brought about a detailed monograph after a survey and all that. And that monograph came out in 85, 86, and that was used with the Karnataka government. Immediately on the monograph, they were included into the scheduled tribe list, and then backward tribe list. and recommended to the center to include in the ST list, which happened in 2003. That is another. And then in from 2085, I was to see how I could get into the Dalit, be part of them and part of their struggles. I passed through this national eligibility test, which and 4 universities invited me for the research with the junior research fellowship, and I was wondering what to do. Then one thought which made me change that what to do. That is, it is better to change society than understand society or study society. And with that, I said no, because I came from a coastal area where our families were homestead individual families. I had no much inkling with the Dalit reality and the caste system. I wanted to know what happens actually in the Dalits, with the Dalits and with their caste groups. Therefore, with that conviction, with that clarity, I said I did not go for PhD and started again now second effort in living with the Dalits, I think from 1986. And as a part of that, immediately at that time, Karnataka, in India, we have this Panchayat Raj Act of 93, but that was preceded in the entire country. I think West Bengal had a very good Panchayat Raj Act. Then Karnataka from 1983, they had a very, very progressive act, which was later on scaled up at the country level. And that under that, the important provision is to conduct Gram Panchayat elections without political affiliations. Any leader who can mobilize support of 400 people, majority of them, they can become a leader. And then we said, let us train this, and we, with the youth, we used to go to different villages with a street theatre and with the knowledge of Panchayat Raj to make them put up their candidates. We did 2-3 days. We were going late in the evening and come back midnight. 3-4 days, the dominant caste people, but the Dalit leaders stood firm. Then I'm not going to. And at one day, I was entering into the Dalit section of the village. The sort of rowdy type of youth, 7-8 of them came around and said, "Don't go away from this village." And it was a threatening situation. I took courage, and then about 5 out, and then one person just once kicked me at the back. For me, it was very, very humiliating. And then I said, maybe now I'm born into Dalit reality. And after this, I think some news would have gone in because it came in the newspapers. The superintendent of police, SP, came to the village and asked me, without trying to, she didn't ask me anything what I was doing, what happened. She just asked me, how many bonded laborers are there? And I said, I've not taken, I have hardly a few months here, and I'll find out and let her know. And when I gave that, the boys with me gave me a list of 40 bonded laborers. And when I took to her, the list to her in her office, she said, spontaneously, now I know why they are against you. At the time, I was concerned about how best to what alternative approach I should adapt. And meanwhile, another leaders of another village heard of this incident, say pressurized me to come to their village. I was not keen before. Then on October 2nd, I went to that village, 1987. And where there, suddenly this, what SP had told me that how many bonded laborers are there, and 40 bonded is one village, and then saying that now I know why they are against you. My thought was, why not take up? And government was denying bonded labor. Take this issue as a issue for a deeper involvement and do that with the survey. I think the immediate inspiration is this XP's remark on bonded labor, and that's how. And the others, I have given you the journey.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I must say, your dedication to helping bonding labor is truly inspiring. So, the next question is about bonded labor continuing to be a significant issue in South Asia, as you know. Could you explain the current situation and the key reason why this form of exploitation still exists?
The traditional or previous some years back differences. Broadly, my position is the current situation of bonded labor in South Asia, not only India, all over South Asia, wherever caste system is very strong, is not very much different than in the past. And maybe, or since independence, at least, it's not much different. There are certain differences, but those things are of different type. But basic, unique features of bonded labor, and because the unique feature of South Asian countries, India, Pakistan, Nepal, mainly, Bangladesh, maybe to some extent, Sri Lanka, not so much maybe, the society is characterized by caste system and hierarchical graded caste system, where it is not just graded, where the lowest placed groups, they are go by the name Dalits and the Mool Niwasis, Adivasis, they are they face various restrictions and seclusions known as caste system, and they face extreme forms of exploitation or marginalization. Believe that they themselves are the cause of that situation. This has made them depreciate their own dignity and accept all dignities, indignities, and exclusions as part of their normal life, with a deep sense of insecurity and inferiority. Now, because in the typical system, sorts of Dalits, all sorts of servile labor to the families, to the communities, to the village communities. And these services were considered polluting. Not only services are polluting, they themselves were carriers of pollution, all these realities. And worse still, their service was not remunerated. They were no doubt looked after, but their needs were kept to the minimum, which what you call the traditional law system, Manusmriti, legal system in one of the legal systems, Manusmriti, social code. It gave, made the Dalits get educated, but hearing a Sanskrit verse, if they happen to hear, molten lead has to be poured on their ears. They could wear only loincloth, both men and women. They did the footwear, but they were forbidden to wear leather wear. See, all these of, but they were looked after. But this situation changed when for regularizing tax collection through cash, and also movement of labor, movement of Dalit groups, uh, uh, tribal groups, and also other backward caste groups to other parts of the country and overseas, all these indentured labor. And then slowly, these wage labor, working on wage labor, the caste system gets loosened. In the village, it is still strong, but outside, and for more and more wage labor with cash payments becomes the norm. And with that, I feel the present what you call debt bondage. You take an advance because cash, as it is always, the cash that is given as wage will not be enough to meet the needs of the person. The tendency is to keep it as low as possible so that they just survive and not live in dignity or meet their all human rights or human needs. Therefore, in this situation, even now, most of bonded laborers or most of the Dalits and the tribals, because 80 to 90% of bonded labor in India, I think also in other countries, Nepal, they are Dalits and tribals. And therefore, they get not other, they are now more and more little bit of very, very poor other backward castes. And therefore, this reality continues. And therefore, there are now the changes are in terms of migration from 1991, increasing migration from northern states to South Indian states, and then from within Karnataka, from northern districts to southern districts, especially Bangalore, around Bangalore, because where the northern 16 districts are less developed than the south. Most of the development happens around Bangalore and South Karnataka. Then, together with the Dalits, all the artisan and farming communities were also had now they are Dalits and Muslims could be the national average is given as 18%. In Karnataka is 25%. Therefore, we can roughly say 1/4 of the population is Dalits who still have all sorts of difficulties, and also about the OBCs who could be about 55 to 65% of the population. They were also forbidden to get educated. They did whatever their services, even farming, as a caste duty. It is not like now cultivation is a valued occupation or remunerative occupation. That is the situation. In this condition, now I have explained what happened and all. Therefore, the bonded labor with these caste dimensions has not changed. And I will come to later. I think I can talk to. See, among the Dalits, even I think though they are entitled for 18% reservation in education, in jobs and all, only the political reservation, maybe they are getting full 18%. But these hardly 1 to 2% of the Dalits and tribals get education and job benefits. That is a most of the 50 to 60% of the agriculture labor and migrants to cities, slum dwellers, are from Dalit and tribal communities. Uh, this is the situation, and these basic features are not changed much in terms of the basic forms of modern labor are people because of their dire needs. They don't have enough savings to meet their needs, emergency needs like hospitalization, operation, or in India, I don't know the other countries, meeting certain social obligations, marrying of girls, especially when they come of age, immediately get married, which entails certain expenses, meals and clothes and all that. And for that, they borrow, and borrowing is repaid not by money, but by agreeing to give render labor. Render labor for which no wages, or even if wage is given, or for interest sometimes, but many times to repay that loan, and without any new wage being given or very less wage. Definitely it will be below the minimum wages. And till that debt or advance is repaid, they have no freedom to come away. Now these features, now whatever may be the different areas where modern labor, I have talked to you about the plantations and about stone quarries and all, but these are the features. And therefore the current situation in South Asia. And unlike now, I think I have to talk about when I'll speak about that later, the last question. The bonded labor, or say the situation of trafficking and modern slavery, the bonded labor is very unique to Indian situation, where mostly the Dalits get into bonded labor, tribals get into bonded labor, and to repay their advances, which may not be that much in other countries. Yeah. And why it continues to exist? Definitely, as I pointed out, it is a caste system. Majority of the Dalits and Muslims getting into it. The poverty alleviation schemes. Now, the normally government, why government even now claims that there is no bonded labor, because they say there are so many poverty alleviation schemes and now so many free guarantees that are given. Therefore, there cannot be bonded labor. There is nothing. There is what we call job cards and jobs given under National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, and this is the tall cane. But since I have explained the reality of caste system, a large number of, that is 50 to 60%, has at least daily wages. They cannot meet their, even now with all these poverty alleviation schemes, all their needs are not met. Definitely, even food needs, malnutrition. Then you can imagine about education of the children, quality education. They may be given free education in government schools, but going to government schools, the village level government schools does not empower them into, does not secure them employable employments. Only at the low level, at the last level, laboring occupation they may get, but that is a lack of proper education, increasing inequality, and I think among all, the lack of decent conditions of work, 8 hours work, minimum wages, to all unorganized sectors in the country. In India, I think it is 93 to 90% are unorganized labor. And more and more in the factories, companies also, the contractualization leading to large informalization, where securities of labor law don't apply. And with that, I think this is the situation why this bonded labor, that most probably there may not be a trend to decrease, but go on increasing. This is my larger.
Well explained answer. Thank you for your explanation on the current situations of bonded labor in South Asia and India, of course, shedding light on some critical issue. So, working in this field must come with many challenges. What are some most significant challenge you have faced while working for free bonded laborers, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I think I'll also be very brief now in the other few questions. One is, I think my journey would have also said that. What are the challenges? But to specifically pinpoint, one is the lack of official data and knowledge about bonded labor. Government does not want to build up proper data. And together with that, we can call the denial of the existence of bonded labor. One law registrar from National Human Rights Commission, I think already in 2015 or so, made in a national level training, made a statement. There is a widespread culture of denial in all the wings of governance, that is executive, legislative, and even judiciary. Culture of denial. And all the levels of government, from MP, country level, state level, district level, taluk level, panchayat level, village level. All there is strong denial and non-recognition. that is somehow built in India. I find that in our state, I find it because Karnataka is supposed to be a progressive state, happening state, capital of what I don't know, whatever, capital of many things, innovative things. But therefore, to acknowledge modern labor, it will be there within Bangalore, around Bangalore, and in all the remote areas where certain remote areas, even now minimum wages. Minimum wages are given stipulated as 350 now, I think. Recently, I have heard certain villages, remote villages on the border of Andhra Pradesh, women get 150 rupees, men 200 rupees per day. And in some very economically prosperous, lot of sugar cultivation, sugar factories, there are also the wages in Belgaum, some remote areas. Wages are 150, 200, 250 for men, women 150 at the most, some in off season. See, therefore, this somehow this is the main, I think, this is the main challenge. Whatever may be the other, there are there, people-centered challenges are there, organizational challenges are there. And as I said, official mindset is to say there is no bonded labor all over the country. Because of government has so many poverty alleviation schemes. You name a issue, there is a scheme. Then ignorance of law, not only bonded labor, minimum wages, even constitutional values of equality, especially Dalits and majority of people are ignorant. It takes a lot, requires to educate, to say this is what, and sometimes even spending a few hours, there are at least few get bold, get courage and to say we are bonded laborers. Then another big thing is lack of civil society organizations taking up the issue of bonded labor. Even if they will be taking these migrant issues, city-like areas where the relationships are impersonal. None of the organizations, I know one organizations in Punjab and our organization, none of them take this where the bonded laborers and agriculture landlords are in close proximity because it is a very sensitive issue. The keepers are also powerful. They are the whatever, and if they and now we find, I said Karnataka state had a high from the beginning till now reports highest number of bonded laborers identified, released, and rehabilitated. But this large number compared to other states, and for the entire country, it reaches 3.5 lakhs. Not more than that. And this figure in Karnataka all mostly pertains to South Karnataka. Not even all the other half of the state, not even 1,300 belong to that, or government has report. But now we know, I told you about the Bitti Chakri in North Karnataka. Then we go there, we know there are a lot of bonded laborers, but they are afraid to come. We have taken now in one district, we have identified that they have got release certificates, about 117 of them from 2017, 2019, but they have not been given any release certificate. The landlords are up in arm, they'll threaten the bonded laborers, and they are very afraid. I thought North Karnataka, because of our great leader, cultural leader, spiritual leader, Basavanna, there is more egalitarian ethos in the North Karnataka, but the feudal mentality of the landlords is very strong, very intimidating situations. And then another challenge is the Bonded Labor Act is very unique, very powerful. I may not have time to elaborate on that, and very effective. Action has been done to the spirit and even to the letter. Bonded labor would be it would be thing of the past in a short time, in no time. The one of the unique feature I already told you, it is not a criminal process of police investigating, reporting, and taking to the court. It is the administrative measure of administrators identifying. Nowhere else in the world, I think, bonded labor in India, and following that same example, I think inspiration Nepal has taken, and Pakistan also. I am told the Bonded Labor Act of India has been more or less followed in Pakistan also. Then, in spite of all that, great provisions. And another provision is even prosecution is given to the executive magistrates, may be given, and Karnataka it has been given. If that is done, that is, if the local magistrate calls up a keeper of bonded labor, who is he? He's a powerful person, politically, economically, socially, and if he doesn't require to be put behind the bars. Our central government rules and this action plan, which I was invited by to government to draft, it says conducting a trial summarily and jailing him for the rising of the court. Central norms are from 2004. Karnataka norms are from 2008. That itself is enough. which bond labor would master would continue to cope. He will lose his place when he is called in front of the DM, where he is there every day. He has to meet him and all that. And then, if the DMs, by saying this, giving exemplary punishment for these normal socio-economic offences, which is part of the life, but where there is real human right violation of killing or maiming, cutting off, whatever, that has to be done with a strong criminal process. Otherwise, that itself, and I think also the DM saying here afterwards is mandated to give employee only for 4 hours, for 8 hours a day, and for the regular extra hours, double the what you call overtime work, and give minimum wages. I think bond labor, if this is put into place, and then there is another provision, Section 8, which says if the landlord gives a home for the bond labor to stay and a homestead for him to use, the bond labor has to get the right to that, right to that house and to the land around. Therefore, but none of these important provisions are, and that is what I call cultural order, and the great challenges, the difficulties, this class and caste bias. Most of the bond laborers even now would be the political higher ups. The legislators would be that. The Bond Labor Act came in 1975, in spite of a fundamental right in the Constitution in 1950, trafficking in human beings and forced labor being prohibited. But the Act came in 75. This is, I would say, if there was no emergency in India at that time, the Bond Labor Act would not have been implemented, even now. And if India didn't bring about, I don't think Nepal or Pakistan also brought it about. Maybe with international forces, United Nations agent forces, something would have happened. But on its own, India parliamentarians would not have brought about. And even now they try to. Now there are subtle ways how to sabotage the act. And therefore, the best is to, and we try to do, bring about proposing what is not there in act through elaborate rules. And we made an effort in 2012 to 14. We doing a command with the National Law University, Delhi, and proposed alternate rules to the government and Government of India and NHRC, but not much has happened. We are still agitating for it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing the reality. I must say, it's important to recognize these difficulties to support them. So, how does bonded labor affect their dignity and the rights for individual? What are the broader social and economical impacts that affected the communities?
See, when we started working, organizing under Jivika, and then there's trade union of bonded laborers, agriculture workers, after they got freed, before getting freedom, there was challenge. There was tremendous resistance to come up and declare because of the fear of the landlords. They would say, no, if we give an application, it will be end of us, end of our family in the village. Please don't do anything. A number of trainings and building up pressure locally, public trainings and all. And when they got freed, and when they started getting whatever the amount, the very small quantity rehabilitating grant, they have built up their life. And now when you ask them, now we are free. And one phrase they use to depict their reality as their life as bonded laborers, they would say, or it would be translated as, or the landlord tells us or shows us by his feet, we have to do it through our hands. Therefore, it says everything. They are subdued, they are not treated dignity, they are not this. And then, in terms of the bonded labor, those get into bondage, not enough economic resources, and that leads to poor quality of education of the children. They cannot invest in healthcare. Most of them would be in malnutrition. Therefore, yeah, and then there were most of these bonded laborers, agriculture workers, the way to get out of their drudgery is to get into drinking and all the other effects of that. I think I'll stop with that.
So, thank you for your response. And the next question is about, can you discuss the successful programs or effort that have made a real difference in fighting bonded laborers and helping the freed laborers rebuild their lives?
Yeah, I think whatever I've shared also to give an answer already. One is conducting scientific surveys, building up proper data, and then building leadership, rather building up locally. All our activists are not taken from outside area and made to work in another area. There are maybe downsides of that, but all these activists are from the community, from the local area where they are they know the area, and it is easy to get the data on bonded laborers. Uh, Building up the trade union of bonded laborers and agriculture workers, because once the bonded laborers are freed, most of the, in spite of their rehabilitation grant, they have to continue as agriculture laborers or daily laborers for most of the year. And therefore, and those who are not bonded laborers now, definitely from Dalit and tribal communities, but among them, the landless, assetless laborers. Therefore, we organize these groups together, and that is we invest very much in training of bonded laborers, training of Dalits, training of officers. Especially after that 2000 episode, we were invited, and we continue to do that. Hold state level programs, mass programs, awareness programs. We conduct two programs. One is October 25, when the ordinance or the act is supposed to be in existence, as the bonded labor system awareness day, with a lot of at the district, sometimes state level seminars, discussions, protests. And then January 26th, the Republic Day, where our constitution, the Republic is constituted with a grand constitution, which guarantees or which promises equality, fraternity, freedom, justice, fraternity, and that we do as Bonded Labor Day. We have been then cultural action. Each of these where we're active, we have street theaters. We go around in street theater, not only bonded laborers, various other street social issues, playback theater. A recent tool we have been using 2000 since 2000, playback theater, which empowers, builds up communities. Self-help groups with women in the families of bonded laborers, where they come pull together their income and then lend it among themselves, so that they don't have their family members don't have reason to contract more debt. Then promoting the education of the children. Wherever we are active, a union is active, see that no child goes to work below 14 years, possibly 18 years. As many children, they are encouraged, especially girl children are encouraged to get educated. Parents convince them to get them put into school, and also join other movements which are advocating universalization of education, common school system. Because then we want to start again residential bridge course, 1 year bridge courses for modern children. But of late, now because of various other forces, most of the children get enrolled into the school. But it is another thing, from the second day, they may be pushed out. But very few. When we began this residential program, most of the bonded children were illiterate. But if it all now, children working and even above 14, 18 years, they would be semi-literate dropouts. Promoting health, and in that process, we try to see that the parents of bonded laborers, parents of our activists get into these school development and monitoring committees and make it effective in delivering education. Similarly, we have another statutory body called Village Health Nutrition and Committee, VHSNC. Then building up livelihood ventures and some places micro enterprises, so that they have something to support on. Accessing as many poverty elevation schemes of the government, supporting whatever they get as bonded labor, the grant under the bonded labor scheme. Then also join the land struggles. Only 1 or 2% of the Dalits will have lands, but a few of them will have lands, but they are under various litigations. We have in Karnataka provision of certain types of lands, PCTL Act, and therefore we try to get that, and also get common lands. And those efforts are going on in a number of places, because ultimately, most of therefore, my ultimate solution for wiping out bonded labor: give minimum wages and secure decent condition of work, not only to bonded labor, to every unorganized labor. That has to come about. Decent condition of work, social security, and then safety for health and the organizational safety and health measures. I think, and then education of the children, quality education for every child, not only bonded children or Dalit children. Every child in any country should get quality education, where within 10, 15 years at the most should be able to be on their own, either academically oriented, get into higher education, or not, have a livelihood and earn a decent livelihood. I think these two, and wherever possible, the land, if given, the bonded labor would be a thing of the past in no time.
Yeah, it's great to hear about the rewarding programs. And effort that has made a real difference in combating bonded labor's life. So the last question is about how can you address the bonded labor as a humanitarian challenge required collective action, and what role can international organization, governments, individuals play in this fight? What actions can we take to support your ongoing efforts?
Yeah, for international government and organizations, I mean, I suppose United Nations agencies, and this now bonded labor, which only I think bonded labor has to be used in South Asian realities. In other countries, the forced labor conventions and afterwards contemporary forms of slavery, trafficking in persons question, and then modern slavery. Now, all these, my first thing is in terms of appeal to international organizations, when they formulate all these international conventions, I think in most of the issues it is there. But I think if I have surmised something from the history of the forced labor conventions, I they were in the context of the world wars, the large displaced people, forcibly employed, and the real specific socio-economic texture of modern labor doesn't reflect in most of this. Similarly, trafficking in persons. The International Trafficking in Persons Convention is about trafficking persons to prevent or to stop organized crime. Now, that is used as such, and in India, trafficking persons against organized crime is clubbed together with bonded labor. I fully agree that trafficking in persons is in organized crime has to be viewed with a strong, powerful criminal action with stringent punishment. But bonded labor in South Asian reality cannot be handled with strong criminal action, prescribing minimum punishments, jailing population. It has to be handled because of its links with the caste system, where of poverty and illiteracy and that deeply ingrained insecurity. First, they have to be empowered economically, socially protected. Therefore, these things, understandings should reflect in the this is I'm not going into in terms of what should be done, but even in formulation of legal instruments, that should be, especially bonded labor, it has to the caste and social and economic features of and where the economic rights, social rights implemented. In I would say before international, I would say the national government should not, because of this pressure of, but it is very clear the Trafficking in Human Persons Act is to prevent organized crime. But in India, I don't know, in Pakistan or Nepal, in other countries, there are many groups, especially Western-based groups, American-based or you, they ask for bond labor also to be included into the Trafficking Persons Act. But that defeats the purpose. Then the bond labor goes underground. You go with that, and nobody comes. And the power of the landlords, the keepers of whatever is very strong. But where the relations are impersonal, where trafficking is involved for organized crime, and also the definition of trafficking. Now, because of the Western reality, American reality, trafficking for organized crime. Therefore, when you apply to Indian situation, where the trafficking, that is movement, migration from one state to another, and all, normally it is not an outsider middleman. It is from their own community, an enterprising person who had gone and worked with a landlord somewhere or practice somewhere. He brings his own relatives, his own promising, and he may get into. To consider that as trafficking and then jailing and maximum punishment, 7 years or 10 years or life, for these, what you call socioeconomic offenses, that has to be reconsidered. And but addressing the empowerment of economic and social empowerment should be the first issue. And whatever that does promotes, I will not go into specifics, the international sensitivity to South Asian realities in understanding and implementing bonded labor. Provision of bonded labor should be there.
Yeah,
I think I don't require to go into what should be done, and we require, and our governments should be have an open-mindedness to understand the vulnerability of the Dalits and the bonded laborers, which is even now, in spite of all, now in India, we are going into a big economic power, but there are still pockets where people are vulnerable. We'll be getting into, as it looks, from all the criteria, they would be getting into more and more bondage-like situations. Yeah.
Yeah, you explain everything so well. So thank you so much for sharing your insight onto the roles and challenges addressing bonded labor that all are very crucial. Thank you, Dr. Prasad, for sharing your insights and for the incredible work you are doing. Your dedication to this cause is truly, truly inspiring. And I'm sure our listeners will take away a valuable knowledge from these discussions. To our audience, thank you for turning in. Until next time, stay informed and engaged. Thank you so much, Dr. Prasad, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy
Take
to share
care.
my experiences.
We are glad to have you today. Thank you so much. Take care, sir.
Welcome.